Last year, I was standing inside one of the largest Caravaggio exhibitions ever assembled. It seemed as if almost no one in the room was looking at the paintings. They were looking at their phones. Some of them were looking at the paintings through their phones. That moment stuck with me because I realized something. We may be living through the first moment in history where people can stand in front of one of the greatest paintings ever created and still struggle to give it their full attention. Welcome to The Art of Clarity, a podcast about creativity, the nervous system, and the strange ways the modern world competes for our minds. I'm Gary Naccarato. Last year around this time, I was in Naples with my husband, and completely by luck, we discovered that one of the largest Caravaggio exhibitions ever mounted was happening while we were there. Incredible luck for us. 2 large yet intimate rooms of these extraordinary paintings. What I saw at that show really affected me, and strangely, it wasn't the paintings. It was something else happening in the room that caught my attention. I think about my phone a lot, probably more than I should. I'm not going to pretend I don't struggle with it because I do, but I am aware of it. I don't sleep with my phone next to me, and I try to wait at least 30 minutes before I look at it in the morning, so my mind has a chance to settle before the bombardment of the day. I love going to get coffee in the morning, ordering my coffee just so I have to wait while they make it. It never ceases to amaze me. Out of 20 people inside the store, besides the employees, 15, 16, 17 of them will be looking at their phones or absorbed into a laptop or tablet. Little interaction, even less engagement, if any. Sometimes I'll make a deal with myself while I'm waiting that I'm not going to look at my phone. Just enjoy the moment. People watch. Maybe feel the warmth of the Los Angeles sun hitting me through the tinted windows. Usually it's no issue. I enjoy the silence, but sometimes I get anxious, and it becomes harder than I'd like to admit. I notice it in a doctor's waiting room, or in a movie theater while waiting for the film to begin. Moments where nothing is happening, and the instinct to reach for the phone creeps in. But something unexpected happened on our dream trip to Italy. Before we got there, we spent a few days in Switzerland, and about 4 days into the trip, I lost my phone. I retraced my steps, looked everywhere. Nothing. It was gone, which meant I was without my phone for almost the entirety of the trip. And that meant something I hadn't experienced in years. A week and a half later, we were in Naples. Still no phone. No translation, no checking email, no taking photos. My husband still had his phone, so I wasn't completely cut off. After the initial panic, I started to settle in. We headed toward the museum. Once there, we stood in line because they were only letting a few people in at a time. Every 20 feet or so, there was a sign with a QR code telling you to download the app before entering. Red flag number 1. It wasn't even a question for me since I had no phone. My husband ignored the signs. It seemed as if almost everyone else was snapping the code and immediately buried in their screens. We guessed the code was some sort of visual and audio guided tour. We were right. Once we got inside, the app led guests through the exhibit, explaining each painting. The problem was, it felt like almost no one in the room was actually looking at the paintings. They were looking at their phones. And the ones not watching the guided tour were taking photos or shooting video. Only a handful of people were actually standing there and looking. Really looking. A few sketching in pads. An elderly couple who seemed transfixed while sitting on a bench, shoulder to shoulder. I had only seen Caravaggios in print and online. This was my first time in person. The detail, the brushstrokes, the uncanny realism on the faces. And out of all of those people staring at their phones, how many were posting to social media? Checking every few minutes, if not seconds, to see how many likes they had. Repeating loops. Ego. Addiction. The inability to tolerate stillness. Ironically, the museum tried to enhance the experience with technology, but by doing so, the technology became the experience. Our phones train our brains to stay in what's sometimes called surface attention. Scrolling, scanning, reacting. Focus, concentration, contemplation, creativity, they get pushed aside. Your brain keeps asking, what's next? What else? What am I missing? Studies suggest it can take up to 25 minutes for the brain to fully regain deep focus after an interruption. Think about that. If we check our phones every few minutes, we exist in a constant state of partial attention. Our minds never fully return. Every notification, every vibration, every text triggers a small dopamine spike. Not much, but enough to keep the nervous system anticipating the next reward. Eventually, the brain becomes uncomfortable with nothing happening. Stillness begins to feel like a problem rather than a reset. Standing in front of a Caravaggio painting requires something that modern technology is slowly erasing: sustained attention. To really see the brushstrokes, the shadows, the way the light moves across a face. You have to stand there quietly for minutes. And for many of us today, that kind of attention feels almost unbearable. What's interesting is that boredom used to serve a purpose. When nothing was happening, the mind had somewhere to go. It wandered. It connected ideas. It imagined things that didn't exist yet. For artists, writers, filmmakers, that quiet space has always been essential. Long stretches of uninterrupted attention. Time to sit with an idea. Time to follow a thought all the way to the end. because creativity rarely happens in the middle of constant interruption. It happens when the mind finally has the space to settle, when the nervous system isn't being pulled in 10 different directions at once. Stillness, it turns out, isn't the enemy. It's the doorway. I remember standing there in that room in Naples, surrounded by these extraordinary paintings. And for a moment, I just stopped. No phone, no photos, no translation, just looking. And the longer I stood there, the more the painting revealed. It made me think about how many things in life might need that kind of attention. Maybe the real luxury today isn't more information or faster technology. Maybe it's the ability to give something our full presence, even for just a few minutes. Because sometimes the most important things in life don't reveal themselves immediately. They unfold slowly to those willing to stand still long enough to notice. This is Gary Naccarato, and this has been The Art of Clarity.